Hello, my name is Ramkrishna. Today I am going to talk about current macroeconomic environment of Canada. There are three measures of macroeconomic environment. Those are output, unemployment rate, and inflation rate. So this slide about Canada's latest figure about output, that is 1.33 trillion US dollar. Population of Canada is 34 million people. Output per capita 39,078 US dollar. Current unemployment rate is 8% and inflation rate is 1.9%. This slide about the GDP in Canada. Canada gross domestic product is worth $1,336 billion or 2.15% of the world economy according to the World Bank. From 1960 until 2009, Canada's average gross domestic product was $452 billion, reaching an historical high of $1,500 billion in December 2008. Canada's economy is diversified and highly developed. The foundation of Canadian economy is foreign trade. The United States is the nation's largest trade partner. Foreign trade is responsible for about 45% of the nation's gross domestic product. Canada is one of the few developed nations that is a net exporter of energy. In this slide, we can see after more than a decade of relatively stable economic growth, the Canadian economy was technically in recession for the fourth quarter of 2008 and the first quarter of 2009, over which GDP growth rates were minus 6.6% and minus 8.5% respectively. This slide about unemployment in Canada. The unemployment rate in Canada was last reported at 8% in September 2010. From 1976 until 2010, Canada's unemployment rate averaged 8.53%. The aggregate unemployment rate in Canada increased more than 8% during the recession. Now it's coming down. Inflation in Canada. Inflation rate in Canada was last reported at 1.9% in September 2010. From 1915 until 2010, the average inflation rate in Canada was 3.26%. This slide about the government budget balance. Between 1990 to 1997, government in Canada engaged in deficit spending, that is, government expenditure were larger than tax revenue. After 1997, you can see after 1997 figures are positive, those are coming positive because the situation was recovered. But again, you can see after 2009, in 2009, figures came to deficit due to government spending to stimulate the economy. For any macroeconomic policy, monetary policy is very important. Canada's monetary policy is built on framework consisting of two key components. those are flexible exchange rate and inflation control target. Exchange rate has a target for inflation that aims to preserve the domestic value of the Canadian dollar. It cannot also have a target for its external value. So there is no set or fixed value for Canadian currency in terms of any other currency. So the main uncertainty hanging over Canadian financial markets is the exchange rate. But due to unique, well-balanced fiscal and trade position and solid base in commodity exports at a time of global expansion, result is Canadian dollar is expected to reach parity with US dollar by 2010, 2011 and continue strengthening. Bank of Canada to maintain slightly easier monetary stance than might otherwise be appropriate. Second, so first we saw exchange rate, and then second is important factor in monetary policy, inflation control target. Inflation control targeting has been a cornerstone of monetary policy in Canada since its introduction in 1991. At present, the target range is 1 to 3% and current inflation rate is 1.92%. With monetary policy, fiscal policy is also important in macroeconomic environment. According to budget 2010, it confirms 19 billion in new federal stimulus under year 2 of Canada's economic action plan. The deficit is projected to be cut to $27.6 billion in 2011 and 12 and $17.5 billion in 2012 and 13. The debt to GDP ratio is expected to peak at 35.4% in 2010 and 11 and 31.9% by 2014-15. Program spending as a share of GDP is expected to decline from 15.6% in 2009 to 10 to 13.2% in 2014-15. So you can see in this graph the Canada's fiscal policy. Initially, there is a big gap between expenses and revenue, but after 1997 you can see the revenue and expenses are coming closer, but after 2009 again expenses and revenue are going away from each other. Revenue is almost constant or coming down, but now expenses are going to be increased. It may be due to government spending or due to stimulus package. Balance of payment in Canada. Canada's overall current account deficit widened by 2.6 billion to reach $11 billion in the second quarter, making the seventh straight quarter of deficit. Export growth for goods slowed while import growth remained strong, which led to deterioration in the merchandise trade business. At the same time, a lower deficit on investment income flows with non-residents was partially offset by a higher deficit on international trade in services. Now, this slide about FDI in Canada, that is foreign direct investment in Canada. You can see after 2004, the peak is increasing. The loosening of international trade policies resulted in a bigger demand for FDIs in Canada. But like other developed countries, Canada experienced decline, declining FDI inflows in 2008 and 2009 due to global economic recession. But the outlook for 2010 and beyond is promising because of the expected economic expansion in Canada and the other countries. So this slide about the Canadian external debt. Canada's federal debt grew steadily between 5% and 10% per year until 1975. For the next 12 years, it grew on average over 20% per year. It surpassed $100 billion in 1981 and it peaked at $563 billion in 1997. The debt then declined to $458 billion by 2008. But now, with recession, the federal debt grew by $5.8 billion in 2008 and 9, and it's expected to grow by $55.9 billion in 2009 and 10. So this is all about current macroeconomic environment in Canada, and these are the sources for this all information. Thank you. Thanks for your time. Bye.